Now, after performing my due diligence, along with many others, and considering all assertions by the House and Senate managers, I believe the president should be acquitted from both charges. I do not believe that removal from office is warranted, more especially during an election year. I, like everyone in this body, listened to 12 days of debate and testimony covering nearly 90 hours. I spent time meeting with my fellow senators in order to reach a conclusion that was, 1, fair, 2, met our constitutional mandates, and 3, what will best serve our nation. Now, I did not seek that responsibility. However, I have tried to carry it out to the best of my ability. As a Senate juror, I was asked to weigh whether or not the House articles of impeachment charging the president with obstruction of Congress or abuse of power had merit, and if true, whether the offenses rose to a level that requires the president to be removed from office, again, during an election year. And like many of us, I am troubled by multiple factors. Quite frankly, I am troubled with the House managers' demand that we in the Senate fill in the gaps of their investigation and call more witnesses, something they failed to execute themselves. The job of the Senate is to be an honest jury, if you will, and not take up the role of prosecutor or prosecution. Nonetheless, after hearing House managers' statements, it was clear this is exactly the role they insisted that we do. I am troubled that countless times the House managers made senators feel as if we were the ones on trial. I believe that House managers were both incorrect and demanding, constantly stating that senators had no choice but to agree with their line of reasoning, and if we did not, then we would deal with the consequences, a veiled threat yet to be defined. Now look, I served in the House 16 years. 12 years before that, I was Chief of Staff for a House member. I know the House. I truly enjoyed my service there. But you don't come to the Senate and point fingers at Senate members and have the insinuation that we are on trial if we do not do the right thing as they have concluded. Enough of that. Additionally, my top concern was what precedents would be set for future presidents and their expectations of privacy in conversation with their advisors. Not to mention the future with regards of this situation once again with our nation finding itself in a whirlpool of partisan impeachment. I've been most troubled that the House managers have not put cause before personal animus. I would think back in the day, perhaps we had Mr. President, that they had a barrel. It's like a rain barrel to capture the excess water off of the roof. I know we have that in Dodge City. I think it probably sat right over there. It's flowing over with personal animus. This is a rain barrel to catch that and to get rid of it. Let us get back to our business. I deeply regret that. As has been stated frequently, Alexander Hamilton described it best: the charges against the president will seldom fail, this is a quote, will seldom fail to agitate the passions of the whole community and to divide it into parties more or less friendly or inimical to the accused. To continue that quote, in many cases it will connect itself with the pre-existing factions and will enlist all of their animosities and partialities, influence, and interest on one side or the other. And in such cases, there will always be the greatest danger to our nation that the decision will be regulated more by the comparative strength of parties than by the real demonstrations of innocence or guilt. I don't know how many senators, and for that matter, the distinguished professor from Harvard, Professor Dershowitz, said that over and over again. Unfortunately, the warning of Alexander Hamilton and our founders have come into fruition today. It is infectious and harming our ability to function as a United States Senate, where the threads of comedy are already getting pretty threadbare. In this regard, I appreciated yesterday when the White House counsel showed clips of major bills important to the American people that we have done in a bipartisan fashion, despite our difference, despite the animus in the Senate, especially highlighting something called the Farm Bill, where we achieved 86 votes with the support, by the way, of the distinguished president. We don't always agree on every issue on the Ag Committee, but we can work together to accomplish great things for America. We've done that with the Farm Bill, along with Senator Stabenow and the entire Agriculture Committee. We are the least partisan committee in this distinguished body. That is what we do in the Senate. That is what we do in behalf of our farmers, ranchers, our growers, everybody, and throughout rural and small-town America. And the charge was certainty and predictability, and we had to get it done. It is what the White House has done on a number of occasions. We use the threads of comedy to get things done. It needs a lot of restitching. So I ask, has President Trump's actions risen to the level envisioned by our founding fathers in the Constitution as high crimes and misdemeanors, warranting removal from office? Our Constitution requires that the threshold for that judgment must be set by each senator sitting as a juror. All of us in the Senate have concerns about the direction this country is heading, but let me just stress that we have come through time and time again through dark times. These are not the worst of times. When I first arrived here in the Senate as a chief of staff for Senator Frank Carlson, it was within weeks we had the horrible tragedy of the assassination of Martin Luther King. Washington was burning. Marines were on the Capitol steps, sandbags, live ammunition. That was tough. Vietnam tore the country apart. So did Watergate. So did the impeachment of Bill Clinton. So did Iran-Contra, just to name a few. Today, a charge of impeachment against the president has placed this nation in jeopardy again. The House manager's assertions are exactly the kind of situation the framers were trying to avoid. The remarks by Alexander Hamilton that I have just read, as they devised the impeachment mechanism to remove a sitting president whose actions endangered the republic. However, as we did back then, we will once again come together. As I said, these are not the worst of times, and we've always pulled it together. We are a strong nation because we have strong people. We are a strong nation because it is in our nature to work together, even as we disagree among ourselves. So, I have made my choice very clear, and my plea is let us restore the threads of comity in this distinguished body. Work together. We must. We will emerge strong, because we will.